What's going on, everybody? C4 here. Welcome back to the 32-team 7-round mock draft series here on the channel. And today we're taking a look at the team that holds the 20th overall pick in the first round in the Pittsburgh Steelers. This was a very tough pick because they have lots of options. They need linebacker. There's some linebackers here. They need a corners here. They need a wide receiver to replace Antonio Brown. There's some wide receivers here. So offensive lineman. You can always use offensive lineman. There's some linemen here. So we had to pretty much have full confidence in the pick that we used at number 20 because that was going to be the starting point for what I actually think is a pretty decent mock draft in my humble opinion. So without further ado, we got a lot of picks to get through here. At pick number 20, I was selecting Devin Bush, linebacker from Michigan. When you look at the roster right now, I honestly think Devin Bush is a day one starter at linebacker. I think he's the best linebacker on the roster. That's no shade thrown at Vince Williams. They got John Bostic, former Florida Gator. Like, these are just like role players. They brought in Mark Barron from the Rams. He's all right. I mean, converted safety, trying to play a little bit out of position. You have Tyler Matakavich, who I actually really liked a couple years ago at a Temple, more of a special teamer. Same with T. Gray Scales last year in the draft. I was very surprised that he went undrafted. So I think there is some upside there, maybe some potential. But ultimately, they don't have that. You know, they had Ryan Shazier, and unfortunately, doesn't look like his career will ever, get back to where it was because he was looking like one of the best young linebackers in football. So getting a guy like Devin Bush, who's coming off an insane combine, 4.43 40.5-inch vert, which pretty much is made up for the size concerns because he is 5'11". Elite sideline to sideline ability, brings all those leadership traits that you want to be in the heart of your defense. I think he's a perfect Ryan Shazier replacement, and while it is kind of bittersweet maybe to say that he is a replacement for a player that had his career unfairly cut short, I mean, you gotta just look at it from purely a football standpoint. They need to move on from Ryan Shazier. They need someone to fill in that role, and I think at pick 20, you can't go wrong with Devin Bush. Going into the second round at pick 52, I was selecting Deebo Samuel, wide receiver from South Carolina. They need a wide receiver to ease the loss of Antonio Brown. You got Juju Smith-Schuster. He's looking like an emergent star. You got James Washington, second-round pick last year. It looks like, there's definitely still a lot of upside there. Worst-case scenario, he's like your wide receiver 3. You got Eli Rogers. He can play the slot, same with Ryan Switzer. They brought in Dante Moncrief, who, height, weight, speed guy on the outside, kind of fills in I can't even remember his name. Like Darius Hayward-Bay, and they had that other guy that I can't remember, Sammy Coates role. Like you just run straight. You catch a 60-yard touchdown every 4 weeks. That's kind of his spot. But I think a guy like Deebo Samuel, he has a lot of upside to emerge as that, partner in crime, if you will, that you could pair with Juju Smith-Schuster that you used to have with Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster. And I think in the second round, that is really, really good value. I think Deebo Samuel has all the potential to emerge as the best wide receiver from this draft class if we look back upon it 3-4 years from now. 4.48 40 definitely helped his draft stock, and I really do think that if he didn't have the injury concerns, because he has had some injuries out South Carolina, he would have been a lock for the first round. Been right there with DK Metcalf, N'Keal Harry, A.J. Brown to be in that first round discussion. Really, really good route runner, had an excellent Senior Bowl. I think in the second round, you're going to be getting a great playmaker that'll be able to contribute right away for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Going into the third round at pick 66, going back to Michigan, I'm selecting David Long, cornerback from Michigan. He had an elite combine every year. I watched the combine. I watched the on-field drills. There's always one player that, just from the on-field drills, makes you go, that guy has it. I don't know what it is. I'm not want to rant and rave. I'm just some guy on YouTube that talks. I'm not paid to be a scout. But a couple years ago, 2 years ago, Kenny Galladay kind of was like day 3. There's some upside there. I watched him during the drills. I was like, that guy's gonna be really, really good. Now he's legit like wide receiver 1 for the Detroit Lions. I have tweets. Go back, just search. If they had Twitter search C4. And Kenny Galladay, and you'll see on the during 2 years ago at the combine, I was like, this Kenny Galladay guy from Northern Illinois, I was like, good God, this guy's a stud. He looks so smooth during the drills. This year, the player that stood to me in the drills that I, wasn't really rating a whole lot because his college production was pretty much non-existent was David Long. Obviously coming from Michigan, the elite athlete. He tested off the charts and all the skill in the athletic testing drills. He's coming from a good scheme. He's going to be well coached from Michigan. He does not have a lot of production whatsoever. But his traits are there. When you look at the small production that he has in his cut-ups and highlight reels and stuff like that, the traits are off the charts. And with Artie Burns more and more looking like a bust, unfortunately, he had a nice rookie year, and ever since then, he's kind of been a downhill spiral. I think he was like the worst corner last year for Pro Football Focus. You need to bring in someone there. And I think in the third round for David Long, you're going to get a pretty decent investment for a guy that'll be able to play right away. I'm not going to say he's going to be an outright starter, but look at their corners right now. You got Joe Hayden, kind of on the downswing of his career. You got Steven Nelson. He's just a spot starter. Even then, he got burned a lot in Kansas City. You have Artie Burns. Is he a bust? Is he not? I did like the Cameron Sutton pick, third-round pick in 2017, but I don't necessarily know why he's not putting it all together. Mike Hilton's a tremendous nickel slot type player. Obviously, he has elite pass rushing ability for a cornerback, but I do think a guy like David Long is well worth the investment here in the third round to not only add much-needed depth, but to maybe eventually develop into a starter. Going to the second, third-round pick at 83, I'm selecting Dennis Daley, offensive tackle from South Carolina. JUCO transfer, he's a great run blocker in his time at South Carolina. For me, looks like a pure right tackle, even though the lines between what's a left and right tackle nowadays is, you pretty much, before your better pass blocker would go left tackle, your run blocker would go right tackle because you want obviously the left tackle to protect the blind side. Nowadays, teams put their edge rushers all over the field, so you need to be good at both. But still, traditionally, there is some merit in saying the right tackle is usually better run blocker. And I think that's what the strength of Dennis Daley's game is. He had excellent tape, though, versus Clemson. Pretty much all scouts will talk about that Clemson tape, and I watched it myself for what you could sit through for watching an offensive line, and I was like, man, bang on. This guy definitely shows flashes of being a definitely franchise tackle in the National Football League, but it's the consistency is not quite there to have him heralded as a first-round pick, maybe even a second-round pick. So I think in the third round, that's some nice little value here. There's no more Marcus Gilbert after they traded him to the Arizona Cardinals, which pains me because I'm a Gator fan and Marcus Gilbert is a Florida Gator. But I do think a guy like Dennis Daley can come in and add some competition to that next tackle spot, because right now you have Alejandro Villanueva, who started left tackle. Chukwuma Okorafor from Western Michigan was a third-round pick last year. You got to hope that he can probably challenge for that right tackle spot. But I think bringing in a guy like Dennis Daley not only solidifies that, but then worst case scenario, if Chuck Okorafor can get that tackle spot, Dennis Daley can emerge as a rookie as your swing tackle. Going into the fourth round at pick 122, I'm selecting Josh Oliver, tight end from San Jose State. He's more of your prototypical 2019 NFL tight end, a receiver first, 6'5", 250 pounds. Coming off a big year at San Jose State, 56 catches, 700 yards, and 4 tutties. Kind of looking at the tight end position, they weren't going to re-sign Jesse James, who I guess if you're looking from potential standpoint, might have had the most potential at this position. You brought in Vance McDonald, who obviously had the stiff arm from hell last year on Chris Conte in the Steelers-Bucs games, but I don't really think you can look at Vance McDonald as a long-term starter. He's kind of just a spot starter at this given time. So I think a guy like Josh Oliver has a lot of upside to develop. He has a body and build that you can train him, you could coach him to get him more well-rounded as a run blocker. For right now, he's going to be able to come in and be one of those receivers that you work in on 2 tight end sets, whereas Vance McDonald is, obviously Vance McDonald has good speed, he's a good athlete, but he's, pretty well balanced, I would like to think, for a tight end. I think a guy like Josh Oliver has that upside to kind of take over that Jesse James role, but then also where Jesse James might have been lacking, and clearly the Steelers agree with this because they let him walk, doesn't really have that tight end 1 potential, but I think you might be able to get that in Josh Oliver and be able to get a guy that as a rookie in the fourth round will be able to contribute to this offense is pretty good here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think adding a tight end right now, because I personally don't think Vincent Donald has more than a year or 2 left. Make the move, get some depth, replace Jesse James, and get a guy that could eventually be your long-term starter. Going into the fifth round at pick 141, I was selecting Cedric Woods, safety from Ole Miss, at 5'11", 205 pounds, ran the fastest time at the combine with a 4.29 Land Sharks defense. Most scouts that I've been able to look at has said he's been misused. A couple Ole Miss fans that are on my Discord and that I talk with on Twitter says he's always looked and shown flashes that he's pretty good, but they thought the DC misused him a lot at Ole Miss. I can't, that's just, I'm relaying that information to you because I just, not a whole lot of tape available on him. He kind of came out of nowhere because of the fast 40-yard dash time, and then from that, more people wanted to dive into his tape. He has 6 career interceptions. He's willing to hit. He has obviously elite makeup speed, cover traits that you want to look for in a safety. When I look at the safeties here, it's still kind of open. They used a surprising first-round pick on Terrell Edmonds last year, but you're going to hope he can develop. But then Sean Davis, the second-round pick in 2016, he's been inconsistent, can show signs that he's a good free safety, can show signs that maybe it's not all there. They got Marcus Allen in the 5th round last year, who's always more of a special teams ace that can give you some spot safety duties. I don't know, what his ceiling holds for them. So I think getting a guy like Woods, who's obviously very, very quick, will bring some special teams ability right away, and maybe will be those guys that, Mike Tomlin and Keith Butler will be able to develop into a very nice starting safety along the lines. But once you get into day 3, you're looking more so for guys that can make your final 53, can give you some spot duty, and also contribute on special teams. And I think all those things, if you were to put them on a list, you'd be able to check off for Cedric Woods. Going into the 6th round, where they have 3 6th-round picks. First up at 175, I'm selecting Alex Barnes, running back from Kansas State. He had an insane combine for his size at 6 feet, between 225, and 230, running a 4.59 40, 34 reps on the bench press, a 4.10 shuttle. He's built like a Pittsburgh Steelers running back. He's built like James Conner, a little bit better athlete than James Conner, and most scouts think that he is one of those guys that underrated in the receiving game. So literally, he kind of fits the same profile as James Conner, might be a little bit more athletic. He's coming off a big year at Kansas State, 1,500 yards from scrimmage, 12 touchdowns. I think ultimately he's a healthy rotation with James Conner. You have Jalen Samuels to be your receiving back, and then you get a guy like James Conner when he needs to get out, needs to get rotated out. Then you throw in a guy like Alex Barnes, which is pretty much the same style. So you stay with that power run style that clearly Pittsburgh wants for their running backs. And I don't think, with no more Le'Veon Bell, we did see James Conner be a starting running back. I don't know if he's done enough in 1 year to solidify himself as their franchise runner. So just to keep the competition healthy, keep him on his toes, because I don't really think Jalen Samuels, who is a tight end offensive weapon type, a guy like Alex Barnes would be a healthy rotation to keep the same style, keep that ground and pound going, and then you still have that receiving back ability and blocking ability and just weapon ability in Jalen Samuels on the roster. So having a James Conner, Alex Barnes, Jalen Samuels backfield sounds pretty good to me. Going to their second 6th-round pick at 192, I was selecting Kyle Phillips, outside linebacker from Tennessee. Prototypical 3.4 size at linebacker, 6'4", 270 pounds. Had a huge pro day, ran a 4.67. Tested in all the reports that he had outstanding pro day. Special teams ability, I think when you look at the roster here, he has a chance to be the 4th outside linebacker there. You have T.J. Watt, Bud Dupree, Anthony Chickillo, who got a brand new contract. But after that, there's an opportunity for a guy that's a great athlete that can bring on some special teams right away. So, that's a common theme for these late round picks. The last 6th-round pick at 207, I was selecting Mike Edwards, safety from Kentucky. Good athlete, had a productive career at Kentucky, 300 tackles, 21 TFLs, 10 interceptions. Again, brings special teams ability, safety depth, just because I think you look at the safeties right now on the roster. I feel like Sean Davis, Terrell Edmonds, and Marcus Allen, those are your 3 safeties. Most teams carry 6. Beyond that, looking just right now on our lads, you have Brian Allen, who I know is like a corner safety hybrid. He's probably going to be sledging on corner. Jordan Dangerfield, Malik Golden. These guys are just, getting Mike Edwards. Replacing those guys with Mike Edwards and Cedric Woods, you get a lot more upside, a lot more athletic ability, and guys that have a higher ceiling. And then finishing out the draft in the 7th round at pick 219, I was selecting Chase Hansen, linebacker from Utah. He's a converted safety, so he has great range, can cover tight ends, brings some special teams ability, and coming off a huge year from a converted safety into a linebacker, I think he can add a lot more depth to the inside linebacker position. The Pittsburgh Steelers have known to carry 5, 6 inside linebackers on their roster. And coming out the fact that he's coming off 114 tackles, 22 TFLs, 5 sacks, and 2 interceptions last year with Utah, had a decent combine. That more and more teams, you already saw their interest in a guy like Mark Barron that's a converted safety linebacker type. With a guy like Chase Hansen, get him on a cheaper deal, add more depth to that style of linebacker, get him in the 7th round again, takes the boxes. Most 7th rounders gonna have to probably make the team on special teams ability alone, and I think you get that with Chase Hansen, plus more linebacker depth. So there you go, guys. That is my 7th-round mock draft here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, Steelers fans in particular, let me know if you agree or disagree with this draft in the comment section below. As always, if you're first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button if you enjoyed. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.